Close your eyes. Let your breathing slow. Tonight, we're traveling to a place so vast, so alive, so incomprehensibly rich in life that it defies simple description. The Amazon rainforest. 6.7 million square kilometers, spanning 9 countries, home to more species of plants and animals than anywhere else on Earth. 10% of all known species live here, in an area that covers less than 2% of our planet's surface. But the Amazon is more than statistics. It's a living engine. It breathes, it rains, it floods and recedes with the seasons. It hums with insects, calls with birds, roars with howler monkeys at dawn. Rivers the color of tea wind through green so dense that sunlight barely reaches the forest floor. Indigenous peoples have called this place home for 11,000 years. They know its rhythms, its medicines, its moods. European explorers who arrived 500 years ago thought they'd discovered a pristine wilderness untouched by human hands. They were wrong. The Amazon has been shaped by people for millennia, cultivated, managed, respected. Tonight, we'll journey through deep time to understand how this forest came to be. We'll walk with the cultures who learn to live within it. We'll meet the creatures who make it breathe, and we'll explore why what happens here matters to every living thing on Earth, including you. Welcome to Rest with the Wild. If you enjoy tonight's journey, consider subscribing for more. The story of the Amazon begins not in the jungle, but beneath the ocean. 55 million years ago, the place we now call the Amazon Basin looked nothing like a rainforest. South America had recently separated from Africa, drifting westward across the ancient Atlantic. Where the Amazon now flows, there was only a shallow inland sea, a massive body of water stretching from the rising Andes Mountains in the west to the ancient Brazilian Shield in the east. No rivers, no trees, no jaguars. Just warm, brackish water teeming with primitive fish, ancient crocodilians, and creatures we'd barely recognize today. The continent itself was an island. North and South America hadn't yet connected. Animals here evolved in isolation, creating bizarre forms found nowhere else. Giant ground sloths, armored glyptodonts the size of cars, terror birds, flightless predators standing 3 meters tall. But beneath the surface, powerful forces were at work. The Nazca Plate, a massive section of oceanic crust, was sliding beneath the South American plate at a rate of about 7 centimeters per year. Doesn't sound like much, but over millions of years, this collision pushed up one of the longest mountain ranges on Earth, the Andes. As the Andes rose, they fundamentally changed the continent's drainage patterns. Before the mountains, rivers flowed westward toward the Pacific Ocean. The rising Andes blocked this path. Water pooled, lakes formed. Rivers reversed course, forced to flow eastward instead. What was once an inland sea slowly transformed into a massive river system, draining toward the Atlantic. This process took millions of years. The Andes didn't appear overnight. They rose in pulses, periods of rapid uplift, followed by erosion, then more uplift. Each pulse changed the landscape, changed where water flowed, changed what could live here. By 40 million years ago, the inland sea was shrinking. Sediment eroded from the rising Andes began filling the basin. Rivers carried minerals, nutrients, soil. The basin floor rose. Marshlands appeared. And with them, the first terrestrial plants. But this wasn't yet a rainforest. The climate was different. South America sat farther south than it does today, still drifting northward on its tectonic journey. The region experienced seasonal dry periods. Early forests were more open, more like modern savannas. The trees that colonized this landscape came from 2 sources. Some migrated from the north, from Central America, even though the continents weren't yet connected. Seeds floated on ocean currents. Birds carried them. Storm winds deposited them on South America's northern coasts. These northerners brought families of plants we'd recognize: early figs, primitive palms, ancestors of cacao. Others evolved here, descendants of ancient Gondwanan lineages, plants whose ancestors had lived on the supercontinent before it split apart. These southern species gave rise to unique Amazonian families: the Brazil nut trees, the jacarandas, the mighty capocs. Two plant lineages meeting in the middle, creating something entirely new. As the Andes continued rising, they created a rain shadow effect. Moisture-laden winds from the Atlantic hit the mountains and released their water. Rainfall increased, the seasonal dry periods shortened, and gradually, over millions of years, the vegetation changed. Open woodlands became closed canopy forests. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, evolved, covering tree branches with orchids, bromeliads, ferns. The understory thickened, lianas wound through the canopy, leaf litter accumulated on the forest floor, creating rich soil that fungi and bacteria broke down into nutrients. By 23 million years ago, something recognizable as a rainforest had emerged. But the Amazon's geological story includes one more crucial element: the rivers themselves. The main channel, what we call the Amazon River today, is actually quite young in geological terms. The modern configuration, with water flowing from the Andes to the Atlantic, only fully established about 10 million years ago. Before that, the river system was fragmented. Multiple channels, seasonal lakes, wetlands that expanded and contracted with rainfall. This fragmentation had profound effects on evolution. Populations of animals and plants became isolated from each other. Over thousands of generations, they diverged, speciated, created the incredible biodiversity we see today. Even now, the Amazon River acts as a barrier. Many species exist only on one side. Certain monkeys, certain birds, certain frogs live north of the river but not south, or vice versa. The river is too wide, too fast, too dangerous to cross, so populations remain isolated, continuing to evolve in different directions. The river's color tells stories too. The main Amazon, fed by Andean tributaries, runs muddy brown, loaded with sediment eroded from the mountains. These are called whitewater rivers, though they're anything but white. The sediment makes them fertile. Floodplains along whitewater rivers support rich agriculture, both for indigenous peoples and modern farmers. But the Amazon has two other types of rivers. Blackwater rivers, like the Rio Negro, flow from the north. They drain ancient, nutrient-poor soils of the Guiana Shield. Tannic acid from decaying vegetation stains the water the color of dark tea. These rivers are acidic, nutrient-poor. Fish are scarce. But the water is stunningly beautiful, clear and dark, like looking through amber. Then there are clear water rivers, flowing from the Brazilian Shield to the south. These drain rocky landscapes with little sediment. The water runs transparent, revealing sandy bottoms, submerged logs, even fish swimming 20 meters below the surface. Where these different rivers meet, they don't immediately mix. The Rio Negro and the Amazon flow side by side for 6 kilometers, black water next to brown, before finally merging. It's called the Meeting of Waters, and it's one of the Amazon's most striking sights. This geological complexity, mountains, rivers, ancient soils, seasonal flooding, created the template for life. By 10 million years ago, the Amazon rainforest was fully formed. The Andes had reached their modern height. The river system had established its current path. Rainfall patterns stabilized, and an explosion of biodiversity began. But the forest didn't remain static. Climate continued to change. Ice ages came and went. During glacial periods, when global temperatures dropped and sea levels fell, the Amazon experienced drier conditions. The rainforest fragmented into isolated patches, refugia, surrounded by savanna and dry forest. In these refugia, populations evolved in isolation. When the climate warmed and the forest expanded again, these populations met. Sometimes they interbred, sometimes they remained distinct. This cycle of fragmentation and expansion, repeated over hundreds of thousands of years, accelerated speciation. It's one reason why the Amazon holds so many species in such a small area. Evolution had multiple opportunities to experiment, to create, to diversify. The geological stage was set. Mountains provided water, rivers created barriers and highways. Soil fed plants. Plants fed animals. And gradually, over millions of years, the Amazon became what it is today, the most biodiverse place on Earth. The Pleistocene epoch, the last 2.6 million years, brought the most recent changes. Ice sheets advanced and retreated across the northern hemisphere. The Amazon never froze, but it felt the effects. During glacial maxima, temperatures dropped by 5 to 6 degrees Celsius. Rainfall decreased by 25 to 30%. The rainforest retreated to core areas. The western Amazon near the Andes, the central basin along the main river, isolated pockets in the north and south. Between these refugia, drier forests and grasslands appeared. Animals adapted or died. Plants migrated or went extinct. But life persisted. And when the ice melted and rainfall returned, the forest exploded outward again, recolonizing the landscape, filling the basin with green. The last glacial maximum ended about 12,000 years ago. As the ice sheets melted, sea levels rose. The Amazon's mouth flooded, creating a wide estuary. Rainfall increased to modern levels. The forest reached its current extent, a green blanket covering much of northern South America. And by this time, humans had arrived. The first peoples reached the Amazon at least 11,000 years ago, possibly much earlier. They found a forest rich beyond imagination, rivers full of fish, trees heavy with fruit, game animals in abundance, and they learned to live here, not merely survive, but thrive. But before we meet those cultures, before we explore the human history of this place, let's meet a few residents living this story right now. In the flooded forests of the Varzea, where the river rises 6 meters every year, a jaguar stirs. He's 7 years old, prime age. His territory stretches along 15 kilometers of riverbank, a patchwork of forest and water that shifts with the seasons. Right now, in the early morning, the water is high. Trees stand in a meter of river. He moves through this world effortlessly, paws finding submerged logs, powerful legs propelling him through water when necessary. He's been resting on a thick branch 3 meters above the flood. Now, as pale light filters through the canopy, he stretches. His coat, golden with black rosettes, is designed for the dappled light of the forest. He's invisible until he moves. He's hunting. He's always hunting. Near the river cliffs, 200 kilometers upstream, a pair of scarlet macaws greet the dawn. She's 12 years old, vivid red and blue, her curved beak designed for cracking the hardest nuts in the forest. Her mate perches beside her. They've been together for 6 years. Macaws mate for life. These two know each other's calls, their routines, their favorite feeding trees. Right now, they're preening. She runs her beak through his feathers, removing parasites, aligning each plume. He returns the favor. This isn't just hygiene. It's bonding, reassurance. We're still together. We're still strong. Soon they'll fly to the clay lick, a ritual they perform every 3rd day. But for now, the morning is gentle, and they tend to each other as the forest wakes around them. And deep in the understory, where sunlight barely penetrates, a strawberry poison dart frog begins her day. She's tiny, barely 2 centimeters long, but her skin blazes red and blue. A warning. She's toxic. Alkaloids in her skin, sequestered from the mites and ants she eats, make her deadly to most predators. Her colors say, don't even think about it. She lives in a world of inches. Her entire territory spans just 20 square meters of forest floor, but within that space exists everything she needs. Leaf litter to hunt in, bromeliads to lay eggs in, moisture, shade, and an abundance of tiny prey. Right now, she's climbing. A bromeliad grows 3 meters up a tree trunk, a plant that collects water in its central cup. She laid eggs there 5 days ago. Now it's time to check on them. We'll return to these 3 throughout the night, watching as their day unfolds across this vast forest. But first, we need to understand how the Amazon assembled itself, how geology gave way to ecology, how empty rivers became highways of life, and how the most biodiverse place on Earth came to be. The Amazon rainforest doesn't just exist in space, it exists in layers. Stand on the forest floor and look up. You're at the bottom of a vertical world that rises 50 meters above your head. Each layer, each stratum, functions as its own ecosystem, with its own climate, its own light levels, its own community of species. At the very top, the emergent layer. Giant trees, capox, Brazil nuts, angelums, punch through the main canopy, their crowns standing alone in full sunlight. Up here, temperatures soar. Wind whips through. Eagles nest. Howler monkeys claim the highest branches as lookout posts. These trees can live for 500 years, watching the forest change beneath them. Below the emergence lies the main canopy, a continuous green ceiling 30 to 40 meters high. This is where most of the forest's life concentrates. Orchids and bromeliads festoon every branch. Sloths hang motionless, covered in algae. Toucans call. Thousands of insect species crawl, fly, mate, and die without ever touching the ground. The canopy is so dense, so productive, that scientists once thought of it as a separate ecosystem, a world suspended in air, barely connected to the earth below. They were partially right. Canopy species can live their entire lives in the treetops. Some frogs never descend. Certain earthworms live in the water-filled bromeliads, never experiencing soil. Beneath the canopy, the understory. Here, light is filtered, green-tinted, dim. Only 2 to 5% of sunlight reaches this level. Plants compete desperately for those precious photons. Leaves grow enormous to capture as much light as possible. Young trees wait, sometimes for decades, for a gap to open above them, for an old giant to fall and create a window of light. And finally, the forest floor. Dark, humid, the air thick with the smell of decay. Leaf litter accumulates, years of fallen leaves, branches, fruits, flowers. This is the recycling center of the forest. Fungi, bacteria, termites, and countless other decomposers break down organic matter, releasing nutrients back into the soil. Except the soil isn't particularly rich. This surprises people. How can the most productive ecosystem on Earth grow on poor soil? The answer: nearly all nutrients are locked up in living things, not in the ground. When something dies, it's recycled almost immediately. Nutrients barely touch the soil before being absorbed by roots, fungi, or other organisms. It's an incredibly efficient system, nothing wasted, everything reused. But the vertical structure is only part of the story. The Amazon also exists in time. Daily rhythms, seasonal cycles, flood pulses that transform the entire landscape. Every year, the river rises, not a little, 6 to 12 meters, depending on location. The floods begin in the western Amazon as Andean snow melts and rainfall increases. Water moves slowly eastward, taking 3 to 4 months to travel from the mountains to the sea. The rising river spreads across the floodplain, inundating forests, filling lakes, connecting isolated water bodies into one vast aquatic system. This is the Varzea, the flooded forest. For half the year, trees stand in water. Fish swim between trunks. Dolphins, yes, river dolphins, hunt among the roots. The forest becomes a wetland. Animals adapt to this cycle. Some migrate upward, retreating to higher ground. Others have evolved to exploit the floods. Fish time their reproduction to the rising water, laying eggs in the newly flooded forest, where their young can feed on fallen fruits and insects. The tambaki, a fruit-eating fish, waits all year for this moment. When the forest floods, rubber trees drop their seeds. The tambaki swallows them whole, digesting the fleshy coating, but passing the seed intact. The fish disperses the tree's seeds across the floodplain. The tree feeds the fish. Both benefit. This relationship evolved over millions of years. The tree and the fish, locked in a partnership older than human civilization. When the water recedes, typically around August, the floodplain becomes land again. Nutrient-rich sediment remains. Grasses sprout, capybaras graze, caimans bask on exposed mudflats. The landscape transforms from aquatic to terrestrial and back again every single year. Meanwhile, our jaguar has noticed something. The water level dropped overnight, just a few centimeters, but he notices. He's lived through 6 flood cycles. He knows the rhythm. The river is beginning its slow retreat toward the dry season. This changes his hunting strategy. When the forest is flooded, prey is dispersed, swimming between trees, hidden in submerged vegetation. But as water recedes, animals concentrate along the shrinking channels. They have to drink, they have to cross, and he'll be waiting. He moves along a fallen log, half submerged, slick with algae. His paws find purchase. Jaguars are comfortable in water in a way most big cats aren't. He's been known to swim across rivers a kilometre wide. He's killed caimans in the water, diving beneath them, biting through their armoured skulls. The strongest bite force of any cat relative to size. But this morning, he's tracking something else. Capybara. He caught the scent 20 minutes ago, musky, recent. A small group, probably 3 or 4 individuals, moving through the flooded forest toward higher ground. He pauses, listens. Water drips from leaves. A kingfisher rattles overhead. And there, movement, 50 meters ahead. The slow splash of something large wading through shallow water. He sinks lower. Invisible, patient. We'll return to him soon. For now, the hunt continues. The flood pulse doesn't just affect large animals. It drives the entire ecosystem's productivity. When the river floods the forest, it brings nutrients. Sediment from the Andes, rich in minerals, settles across the floodplain. Decomposing fish, carried from upstream, fertilize the soil. Even the water itself contains dissolved nutrients that plants absorb directly. This annual fertilization is why the Varzea is so productive. The same area of unflooded terra firma forest, the higher ground that never floods, produces far less. The soil there is ancient, weathered, depleted. Without the river's annual gift of nutrients, growth is slower, fruits are smaller, animal populations are lower. Indigenous peoples recognized this pattern thousands of years ago. They settled the Varzea, planted crops on the floodplain, harvested fish when waters rose. The annual flood was predictable, reliable, life-giving. It still is. But the Amazon isn't just one ecosystem. It's a mosaic of dozens, each with its own dynamics, its own species, its own rules. The Igapo forests flood with black water, acidic, nutrient-poor. Fewer fish live here. The trees have adapted to prolonged inundation, sometimes standing in water for 8 months of the year. Their seeds germinate underwater. Their roots can survive without oxygen for months. The terra firme, the unflooded upland forests, cover about 70% of the Amazon. These are the classic rainforests most people imagine. No floods, stable conditions. But with stability comes intense competition. Every bit of light, every drop of nutrients, every square centimetre of space is contested. Then there are the white sand forests, rare patches where ancient nutrient-poor sand soils create stunted woodlands. The trees here grow slowly, their wood dense and hard. Fewer species live here, but those that do are often specialists, found nowhere else. Even within these broad categories, variation continues. Hilltops have different species than valleys. North-facing slopes differ from south-facing. The forest is not uniform. It's a patchwork, a mosaic, a collection of microclimates and microhabitats, each supporting its own community. Our scarlet macaws have taken flight. They leave their roosting tree near the cliff face, a towering kapok where dozens of macaws sleep each night. The morning air is cool. She leads, her mate follows. They fly in formation, wingtip to wingtip, calling back and forth. Their voices carry across the forest, harsh, loud, unmistakable. They're heading to the clay lick, an exposed cliff face along the river where mineral-rich clay is exposed. Macaws need these minerals, sodium, calcium, others, that their fruit-based diet lacks. Every few days, they make this journey. The flight takes 20 minutes. They cross the river, following its curve, staying above the canopy. Below them, the forest stretches in every direction. Green, endless green, but they know every landmark. That dead tree struck by lightning, that bend in the river, that patch of bamboo. They descend. The clay lick is already busy. 30, maybe 40 macaws of various species cluster on the cliff. Blue and yellow macaws, red and green, chestnut-fronted. They jostle for position, scraping clay with their beaks, ingesting small amounts. She lands, her mate beside her. They're cautious. The clay lick is dangerous. While focused on eating, they're vulnerable. Harpy eagles hunt here. She's seen it happen. A shadow dropping from above, talons extended, and a macaw gone. So they watch, eat a little, watch again. Other birds around them do the same, a collective vigilance. If one bird startles, all fly. The clay tastes mineral, slightly bitter. She scrapes another beakful. Her mate does the same. 5 minutes. That's enough. They launch together, climbing back toward the canopy. The day is still young. They'll feed later, visiting a fruiting palm they've been monitoring for weeks. But first, they'll return to the roosting tree, rest, preen again. The rhythm of their days is consistent, predictable. It's kept them alive for 12 years. Beneath the canopy, in the world of the understory, communication happens differently. Light is scarce. Long-distance vision is impossible. So many animals rely on sound, on scent, on vibration. The forest floor is a landscape of chemical signals and acoustic shadows. Leaf-cutter ants navigate by pheromone trails. A single ant discovers a suitable leaf. Tough, slightly toxic, perfect for their fungal gardens. She returns to the colony, laying a chemical trail. Within minutes, hundreds of ants follow that trail, each one cutting and carrying leaf fragments back to the nest. They don't eat the leaves. They feed them to fungus. The fungus breaks down the leaf material, and the ants eat the fungus. It's farming, agriculture, and it evolved 50 million years ago, long before humans invented the practice. The ants are incredibly strong. Each one can carry 20 times her body weight. Watch them march, a green river of leaf fragments flowing across the forest floor, up trees, down into underground chambers. A large colony can strip a tree bare in a single night. But the forest fights back. Some plants have evolved defenses. Waxy leaves that ants can't grip. Chemical compounds that poison the fungus. Symbiotic relationships with other ant species that attack leafcutters. It's an arms race. Plant defenses versus insect adaptations. Millions of years of evolution playing out in the chemical language of toxins and antitoxins. And it's not just ants. Termites build mounds. Fungi send networks of mycelium through the soil, connecting trees, sharing nutrients, trading information. We're only beginning to understand these underground networks, the wood wide web that links the forest into a single communicating organism. Our poison dart frog has reached the bromeliad. The climb took her 15 minutes. For a creature 2 centimeters long, 3 meters is a significant journey. She navigated moss-covered bark, avoiding spiders, pausing when a lizard passed too close. Now she peers into the bromeliad's central cup. Water fills it, rainwater collected over days, and there, wriggling against the sides, her tadpoles. She laid 6 eggs here 5 days ago. 4 have hatched, 2 didn't make it, a normal ratio. The tadpoles are tiny, translucent, barely developed, but they're hungry. She positions herself at the edge of the water. Then she does something remarkable. She releases a single unfertilized egg into the cup. This is food. The tadpoles swarm it, feeding. This is how she'll raise them, visiting every few days, depositing nutritious eggs for them to eat. No other food source exists in this tiny pool. She is their only sustenance. It's costly. Producing eggs requires energy. Climbing to this bromeliad multiple times per week is dangerous. But this strategy works. By using a predator-free pool high in the trees, her tadpoles avoid the fish, dragonfly larvae, and other predators that would consume them in ground-level water. She'll continue this routine for 6 weeks. Then the tadpoles will metamorphose, becoming tiny froglets. They'll leave the bromeliad, descend to the forest floor, and begin their own lives. For now, she watches them feed. Satisfied, she begins her descent. The morning hunt awaits. Mites, ants, springtails, the tiny prey that makes her toxic. Ease, the Amazon's productivity, its sheer abundance of life, comes from countless relationships like these. Fig trees and fig wasps. Each fig species has its own wasp species. The wasp pollinates the fig. The fig provides a place for the wasp to lay eggs. Neither can survive without the other. There are over 700 species of figs in the Amazon, 700 corresponding species of wasps, 700 separate evolutionary partnerships, acacia trees and acacia ants. The tree provides hollow thorns for the ants to nest in, and nutrient-rich structures called Beltian bodies for them to eat. In return, the ants attack anything that touches the tree: herbivorous insects, browsing mammals, even other plants. The tree has an army, and the army has a home. Army ants and antbirds. The ants swarm across the forest floor in massive raiding parties, up to 20 million individuals moving together. They flush out insects, spiders, small vertebrates. The antbirds follow, catching the fleeing prey that the ants miss. The birds don't eat the ants. They eat what the ants scare up. A commensal relationship. One benefits, the other isn't harmed. Everywhere you look in the Amazon, species are connected. Not just predator and prey, but partners, cooperators, symbionts. The forest isn't a collection of individuals competing for resources. It's a network of relationships, a web of dependencies, a community. And what about the species we can't see? The Amazon contains an estimated 300,000 species of beetles. Most haven't been named. Many haven't been seen by scientists. They live in the canopy, in rotting logs, beneath bark, in leaf litter. Each species has its own niche, its own food source, its own strategy. There are moths that drink the tears of sleeping birds, caterpillars that disguise themselves as bird droppings, wasps that parasitize other parasitic wasps, flies that mimic bees, bees that don't sting but bite, beetles that farm bacteria in specialized organs. The complexity is almost incomprehensible. And that's just insects. Add in the fungi. Perhaps 1.5 million species in the Amazon, most undiscovered. They decompose. They form partnerships with plant roots. They produce compounds that fight bacteria, that cause hallucinations, that cure diseases. Every time a fallen tree is examined, new fungal species are found. Then the bacteria, the archaea, the viruses. Microscopic life beyond counting, beyond cataloguing, beyond our current ability to even comprehend. The Amazon isn't just biodiverse at the scale of jaguars and macaws. It's biodiverse all the way down to the smallest organisms, to the invisible majority that makes the forest function. Seasonal change adds another layer of complexity. The Amazon doesn't have winter and summer. It has wet season and dry season. But even these aren't uniform across the basin. The northwestern Amazon peaks in rainfall from April to June. The southern Amazon from December to February. The eastern Amazon experiences 2 wet seasons per year. Plants have evolved to track these patterns. Some flower during the wet season when pollinators are abundant. Others wait for the dry season when competition for pollinators is lower. Fruiting times are staggered throughout the year, ensuring that fruit-eating animals always have something to eat, but never so much that they ignore any particular tree. This staggering of resources prevents boom and bust cycles. In temperate forests, spring brings an explosion of productivity, followed by a lean winter. The Amazon experiences constant productivity year-round. Something is always flowering. Something is always fruiting. The ecosystem never sleeps, but it does shift. Dry season brings challenges. Water becomes scarce away from rivers. Some animals migrate toward water sources. Others have evolved to store water, to reduce activity, to wait out the dry months in a state of reduced metabolism. And then the rains return. The forest exhales. Frogs emerge and begin calling, a chorus so loud it drowns out conversation. Butterflies hatch in the millions. Rivers rise. The cycle continues. This is the Amazon's engine, the flood pulse, the nutrient cycling, the vertical stratification, the seasonal rhythms, the microscopic partnerships, and the massive migrations. All of it interconnected, all of it dependent on every other part. Remove one piece and the system adjusts. Remove too many and it collapses. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we explore what threatens this forest, we need to understand who has lived here, who has shaped it, who has known its secrets far longer than science has existed. The human story of the Amazon begins 11,000 years ago, but the depth of that story, the sophistication of that relationship, has only recently been understood. Let's meet the peoples who made the Amazon their home. The first peoples arrived when the Amazon was different. 11,000 years ago, possibly earlier, humans crossed into South America from the north. The climate was cooler. Sea levels were lower. The forest was less dense, more fragmented. Large animals still roamed. Giant ground sloths, elephant-sized gomphotheres, saber-toothed cats. These early peoples were hunter-gatherers. They tracked megafauna, fished the rivers, gathered fruits and nuts. But they were more than passive inhabitants. They began shaping the forest almost immediately. Archaeologists once believed the Amazon was too harsh, too poor in resources to support large populations. The narrative was simple. Indigenous peoples lived in small scattered bands, moving constantly, leaving no trace. The forest was pristine, untouched, virgin wilderness. Every part of that narrative was wrong. Recent discoveries have revealed something far more complex. The Amazon wasn't wilderness. It was a managed landscape, cultivated and modified by humans for thousands of years. The forest we think of as natural is, in many places, the result of deliberate human design. The evidence is in the soil. In parts of the central and eastern Amazon, you'll find patches of terra preta, black earth. This soil is rich, dark, full of charcoal and organic matter. It's unlike anything else in the Amazon, where most soil is red, acidic, nutrient-poor. Terra preta isn't natural. It's anthropogenic, human-made. Indigenous peoples created it by mixing charcoal, bone, manure, and organic waste into the soil over centuries. The charcoal acts like a sponge, holding nutrients and water. The organic matter feeds soil organisms. The result is soil that remains fertile for thousands of years. These patches can be 2 meters deep and stretch for hectares. They mark the locations of ancient settlements, villages, possibly even cities. And there are hundreds of them, scattered across the Amazon basin. Radiocarbon dating tells us some terra preta sites are over 2,000 years old. They're still productive today. Modern farmers seek them out, knowing crops will thrive in this ancient, engineered soil. But why did indigenous peoples create it? Probably not intentionally. At least not at first. Villages accumulated waste, food scraps, charcoal from fires, human and animal waste. Over generations, this accumulation transformed the soil. People noticed crops grew better there. They began managing the process deliberately, adding charcoal and organic matter, creating fertility where none existed before. It's a form of agriculture, but not like anything Europeans practiced. It's subtle, long-term, working with the forest rather than clearing it. And the forest itself bears the marks of human cultivation. Botanists have long wondered why certain useful trees, Brazil nuts, cacao, palms, cluster in specific areas. Why does the distribution seem non-random? Why are valuable species more common near rivers, near archaeological sites, near areas humans would have inhabited? The answer: people planted them. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples practiced forest gardening. They didn't clear the land. They enriched it. They planted useful trees in clearings, along paths, near villages. They protected saplings. They dispersed seeds. Over generations, they created orchards that look like natural forest, but are actually the product of careful cultivation. Some scientists now estimate that up to 12% of the Amazon's tree species were intentionally favored by pre-Columbian peoples. Not domesticated exactly, but encouraged. Semi-cultivated. The forest is partly a garden, one so old we forgot it was planted. This changes how we think about conservation, protecting pristine wilderness. Much of the Amazon isn't pristine. It's cultural landscape, shaped by humans for millennia. Removing people from these areas doesn't preserve nature. It erases the very management practices that created the biodiversity we're trying to protect. Let's meet some of the peoples who still carry this knowledge. The Yanomami live in the northern Amazon, spanning the border between Brazil and Venezuela. 25 to 30,000 people across some 200 villages. They're one of the largest relatively isolated indigenous groups remaining in the Americas. The Yanomami practice shifting cultivation, clearing small gardens, planting crops for a few years, then allowing the forest to reclaim the land. But they don't abandon these old gardens. They return to harvest fruit trees, medicinal plants, and other useful species that continue growing there. The forest regenerates, but in a way that serves human needs. They also maintain incredibly detailed ecological knowledge. They recognize hundreds of plant species by sight, smell, and taste. They know which plants cure which ailments: fever, infection, snakebite, digestive problems. This knowledge isn't written down. It's passed orally, generation to generation, through stories and practice. Western medicine has only recently begun to appreciate this pharmacological library. Quinine, which treats malaria, comes from cinchona bark, knowledge indigenous peoples shared with Europeans. Curare, used in surgery as a muscle relaxant, comes from rainforest vines. Dozens of modern medicines trace their origins to indigenous plant knowledge. How many more medicines exist in the forest, known to indigenous peoples but not yet recognized by science? We don't know. And as languages disappear, as elders die, as young people move to cities, that knowledge vanishes with them. The Kayapo in the southeastern Amazon are master fire managers. Outsiders often think of indigenous peoples as living lightly on the land, taking little, leaving no mark. But the Kayapo actively shape the landscape with fire. They burn strategically, creating clearings, encouraging certain plants, managing game populations. This isn't destructive, it's ecological engineering. Small controlled burns prevent larger catastrophic fires. They create mosaic landscapes, patches of different ages and vegetation types. This increases biodiversity. Different animals prefer different habitat ages. By maintaining a patchwork, the Kayapo ensure abundant game, diverse plants, and resilient ecosystems. They also create apete, forest islands in the savanna. In areas of natural grassland, the Kayapo plant trees, creating circular forest patches. Over generations, these islands expand. They provide shade, fruit, medicinal plants, and hunting grounds. The landscape becomes richer, more productive. European colonizers saw savanna and assumed it was natural, unchangeable. The Kayapo saw opportunity and created forest. Our jaguar has had success. The capybara group, 4 adults, 2 juveniles, moved through the shallows exactly as he predicted. He waited, motionless, on a partially submerged log. Patience is his greatest weapon. When the moment came, it was over quickly. The largest adult, lagging behind the group, passed within 3 meters. He exploded from stillness. 3 powerful bounds through water, then impact. His jaws found the base of the skull, the killing bite. The capybara died within seconds. Now he drags the carcass onto higher ground. 100 kilograms of meat. He'll feed here, then cache the remainder, covering it with leaves and debris. Tomorrow he'll return, possibly the day after. Jaguars don't waste food, but something interrupts his meal. A sound, distant, unfamiliar. The rhythmic splash of paddles. A canoe moving upriver. He watches from the shadows. 3 people, indigenous fishermen, judging by the distinctive craft. They're not hunting him, probably don't even know he's here. They pass within 50 meters, voices carrying across the water, then disappear around the river bend. He returns to feeding. Humans have always been here, part of the forest's rhythm. As long as they keep their distance, he keeps his. The ancient understanding holds. This forest is large enough for all its inhabitants. The Ashaninka, in the western Amazon of Peru, speak of the forest as a living entity, not metaphorically. They believe the forest has consciousness, intention, spirit. Trees communicate. Animals watch and remember. The forest provides, but it also expects respect. Take too much, show arrogance, violate the balance, and the forest withdraws its generosity. This isn't superstition. It's ecology expressed through spiritual language. When an Ashaninka hunter kills an animal, he performs a ritual, apologizing to the spirit of the animal, explaining the necessity, promising to waste nothing. This practice ensures mindful hunting, sustainable harvesting. You can't apologize to a spirit every day and still overhunt. The ritual enforces restraint. They also recognize plant personhood. Certain trees, especially old ones that provide exceptional resources, are treated as ancestors. You don't cut such a tree without consultation, without ceremony, without genuine need. Again, the spiritual practice creates ecological sustainability. Western conservation often separates humans from nature. Indigenous philosophy integrates them. People are part of the forest, not outside observers. Our well-being and the forest's well-being are inseparable. For thousands of years, This integration worked. Indigenous populations grew, villages expanded. Some settlements may have housed thousands of people. Terra preta sites suggest permanent occupation, not nomadic wandering. And then Europeans arrived. The first documented European to navigate the Amazon River was Francisco de Orellana in 1542. His expedition, originally seeking El Dorado, ended up traversing the entire river from the Andes to the Atlantic. The journey took 8 months. They nearly starved. But Orellana's accounts describe something unexpected. Large settlements, cultivated fields, dense populations. At one point, his expedition encountered a settlement that stretched uninterrupted for 80 kilometers along the riverbank. He estimated populations in the tens of thousands. Later explorers found nothing. Empty forest, scattered villages. Where had the people gone? Disease. Europeans brought smallpox, measles, influenza, diseases to which indigenous peoples had no immunity. Epidemics swept through the Amazon with devastating speed. Settlements that had existed for centuries vanished within a generation. Some estimates suggest 90 to 95% population decline in the first century after contact. This is why the Amazon appeared pristine to later Europeans. They weren't seeing virgin wilderness. They were seeing a post-apocalyptic landscape, a garden gone wild after the gardeners died. Our scarlet macaws have found their fruiting palm. They've been monitoring this tree for 3 weeks, waiting for the fruits to ripen. Now, perfect timing. The palm stands 40 meters tall, its crown heavy with yellow-orange fruits. A dozen macaws already feed there. Competition, but the tree produces abundantly. Enough for all. She lands on a thick frond. Her mate joins her. They begin the careful work of extracting fruit. The outer flesh is tough, fibrous. Inside, a hard seed. They eat the flesh, drop the seed. Below, on the forest floor, peccaries wait. They'll crack those seeds with their powerful jaws, eating the kernel inside. This feeding relationship, macaws in the canopy, peccaries below, has existed for millennia. Neither species consciously cooperates, but both benefit. The macaws access the flesh they can't crack. The peccaries get the seeds they couldn't reach. The palm's seeds are dispersed, scarified by the peccary's digestive system, ready to germinate. But she notices something odd. Carved marks on the palm's trunk. Human marks. Someone has been here recently, checking the tree, possibly harvesting fruits. Indigenous peoples have long used these palms. The fruits for food, the fronds for roof thatching, the trunks for construction. This tree might be part of someone's traditional territory, monitored and partially harvested, but not destroyed. She doesn't mind sharing. The tree produces more than she can eat anyway. She continues feeding, her mate beside her, the morning sun warming their feathers. The forest provides for many. It always has. The devastation didn't end with disease. The rubber boom, late 1800s to early 1900s, brought new horrors. The Amazon held vast stands of rubber trees, and global demand for rubber was exploding. Bicycles, automobile tires, industrial belts. The world needed rubber, and the Amazon had it. Companies moved in. They enslaved indigenous peoples, forcing them to tap rubber trees under brutal conditions. Those who resisted were killed. Those who didn't meet quotas were tortured. Entire tribes were exterminated or fled deeper into the forest. The city of Manaus, in the heart of the Amazon, became fabulously wealthy. Opera houses were built, European architecture, luxury imported from Paris, all funded by rubber, all built on indigenous suffering. Then the boom collapsed. A British explorer had smuggled rubber tree seeds out of Brazil. Plantations were established in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia. They could produce rubber cheaper, more efficiently. The Amazon's rubber economy crashed almost overnight. The infrastructure was abandoned, the opera houses decayed, but the damage to indigenous peoples remained. Populations that had survived disease now faced cultural destruction, land theft, forced assimilation. Even today, the pressure continues. Logging companies cut valuable hardwoods, mahogany, ipe, kumaru, often illegally, often in indigenous territories. Mining operations, gold, diamonds, other minerals, pollute rivers with mercury, destroy forest, bring violence. Cattle ranching expands relentlessly. Forest is cleared, burned, replaced with pasture. The rich soil, millions of years in the making, erodes within a few seasons. The land becomes degraded, useless for farming. But the ranchers move on, clearing more forest, repeating the cycle. And now, large-scale soy agriculture. International demand for soy, mostly for animal feed, drives deforestation in the southern Amazon. Hundreds of thousands of hectares cleared annually, the forest converted to monoculture. Industrial farms that produce for export, not local consumption. Indigenous peoples resist. They blockade illegal roads. They document crimes. They bring cases to international courts. But they're outmatched. Poorly armed communities facing wealthy industries, corrupt officials, and sometimes national governments hostile to their existence. Yet they persist. Because for them, this isn't about preservation or environmentalism. It's about survival. The forest is their home, their pharmacy, their supermarket, their temple. Losing it means losing everything. Our poison dart frog hunts in territory marked by ancient human presence. She doesn't know this, of course. But the slight rise where she forages, 20 centimeters higher than the surrounding forest floor, is a buried trash mound from a village that existed 800 years ago. The terra preta here runs deep. The leaf litter is richer. The invertebrate population is denser. She finds a cluster of mites beneath a fallen leaf. Her tongue flicks out, fast, sticky, precise. She consumes them one by one. Each mite contains trace alkaloids, the very chemicals that make her skin toxic. She's what she eats, quite literally. A column of army ants approaches, thousands of them moving in coordinated waves. She doesn't flee, instead she follows. The ants flush out prey, small spiders, springtails, other mites. She catches what escapes the ant horde. This is survival in the understory. Every opportunity exploited, every resource used. The forest floor is competitive, crowded, intense, but it's also stable. Her species has lived here for millions of years. Humans arrived, modified the forest, sometimes improved it from a frog's perspective. Those trash mounds create perfect hunting grounds. Then humans died, vanished, or moved on. The forest adapted. The frogs remained. She returns to her bromeliad as afternoon light filters through the canopy. Time to check the tadpoles again. Time to deposit another egg. The cycle continues as it has for longer than humans have walked this earth. In recent decades, something has shifted. Indigenous rights are increasingly recognized. Reserves are established. Legal protections expand. Not everywhere, not consistently, but the trajectory is changing. Brazil, Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, all have designated indigenous territories where traditional practices are protected, where outside exploitation is theoretically prohibited. These protected areas are working. Studies show that forests under indigenous management have lower deforestation rates than national parks, than reserves managed by governments. Indigenous peoples, it turns out, are the most effective conservationists, not because they're trying to conserve, but because their way of life depends on the forest's health. They've developed methods to monitor their territories using GPS, drones, satellite imagery. They've formed alliances across tribes, across borders. They've learned to navigate international law, to bring their cases to global forums. The coordinator of indigenous organizations of the Amazon Basin, an alliance of indigenous groups from 9 countries, now represents over 400 different peoples. They share strategies, resources, legal expertise. They're building a movement. But the challenges remain immense. Political winds shift. Governments change. Legal protections are reversed. The pressure to exploit the Amazon's resources, its timber, its minerals, its land, is relentless. Here's what's often misunderstood. Indigenous peoples don't want to preserve the Amazon in amber, frozen, and untouched. They want to continue living with it, using it, shaping it, as they have for 11,000 years. That means some hunting, some cultivation, some burning, some harvesting of timber and medicinal plants. It means the forest changes, but within bounds the ecosystem can absorb. Western conservation often creates parks where no one can live, where nothing can be taken. This makes sense for some ecosystems, some purposes. But in the Amazon, it often means removing the peoples whose presence created the very biodiversity we're trying to protect. A better approach: support indigenous land rights. Recognize their knowledge. Give them resources to defend their territories. Let them manage the forest as they've always done. Because the evidence is clear. Where indigenous peoples remain, the forest remains. Where they're removed, degradation follows. The human history of the Amazon is not a simple story of harmony disrupted. It's complex, layered, sometimes contradictory. But certain truths emerge. People have always been here. They've shaped this forest. The pristine wilderness is partly a human creation, not through destruction, but through cultivation, through deep knowledge, through a relationship with the land that sees humans as part of nature, not separate from it. That relationship was disrupted. Disease, slavery, colonization, industrial exploitation, centuries of violence and extraction. But it wasn't destroyed. Indigenous peoples survive. Their knowledge survives. Their connection to this place survives. And that survival might be the Amazon's best hope, because the peoples who have lived here longest, who know this forest most intimately, also have the strongest motivation to protect it. Their future and the forest's future are one and the same. As night falls and our journey continues, we'll explore the creatures that make this forest breathe, the mammals, birds, insects, and plants that together create the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. But we'll carry with us this understanding. The Amazon is not and has never been empty of people. It's been home, garden, and sacred place for thousands of years. And it still is. 10% of all known species on Earth live in the Amazon. Let that sink in. Of every creature scientists have identified, catalogued, and named, every mammal, bird, reptile, amphibian, fish, insect, plant, fungus, 1 in 10 lives here. In less than 2% of the planet's surface area. This isn't an accident. It's the result of millions of years of evolution in a stable, productive environment. The Amazon has been wet, warm, and continuous for far longer than most ecosystems have existed. Species have had time to diversify, to specialize, to find niches so specific they exist nowhere else. How many species exactly? No one knows. New ones are discovered constantly. Conservative estimates suggest 40,000 plant species, 1,300 bird species, 427 mammal species, 3,000 fish species, and insects, perhaps 2.5 million species, though most remain unnamed, unstudied, unknown. Every handful of soil contains organisms new to science. Every tree canopy harbors beetles never before seen. The Amazon isn't just biodiverse, it's incompletely discovered, partially explored, fundamentally mysterious. Let's start with what we can see. The mammals. The Amazon's mammal fauna is recent, geologically speaking. When South America was an island continent, its mammals were bizarre, marsupials, strange hoofed animals, giant armored creatures. Then, 3 million years ago, the Isthmus of Panama formed, Connecting North and South America, animals crossed in both directions. This event, called the Great American Biotic Interchange, transformed both continents. North American mammals flooded south: cats, dogs, bears, deer, tapirs. Many South American natives went extinct, unable to compete with these newcomers. But some survived, and others adapted so successfully they became iconic Amazonian species. The capybara, largest rodent on Earth, descends from those ancient South American lineages. So do sloths, anteaters, and armadillos. They persisted by finding niches the North American invaders didn't occupy. The capybara became semi-aquatic. Sloths retreated to the canopy. Anteaters specialized on termites and ants, food sources other mammals largely ignored. The result is a mammal community unlike anywhere else. Ancient South American survivors mixing with more recent arrivals, coexisting, competing, creating something entirely new. Consider the sloth. There are two families in the Amazon, two-toed and three-toed. Despite the names, both have 3 toes on their hind feet. The difference is in the front limbs. Sloths move so slowly that algae grows on their fur. This isn't a problem. It's camouflage. The green tinge helps them disappear into the canopy. Moths live in their fur, feeding on the algae. Beetles and ticks join them. A sloth is an ecosystem, host to dozens of species that exist nowhere else. They descend from the canopy once a week, always for the same reason: to defecate. Why risk predation for this? Why not simply release waste from the trees? The answer connects to those fur-dwelling moths. When the sloth descends, the moths leave the sloth's fur and lay eggs in the fresh dung. The eggs hatch. The larvae feed on the dung. Eventually, adult moths emerge and fly up into the canopy, seeking a new sloth host. The sloth's weekly journey maintains its fur ecosystem. Without it, the moths disappear. Without the moths, the algae grows differently. The entire relationship unravels, so the sloth makes the dangerous journey, supporting the creatures that support it. This is Amazonian ecology in miniature. Relationships within relationships. Dependencies so complex, we're only beginning to understand them. The Amazon's big cats tell another story. Jaguars are the apex predators, the only big cat in the Americas. They evolved in North America during the Pleistocene, then moved south during the Great American Interchange. In the Amazon, they adapted to a semi-aquatic lifestyle unusual for cats. They swim. They hunt in water. They've been documented killing black caimans, powerful predators in their own right, by diving beneath them and delivering a crushing bite to the skull. Their bite force is the strongest of any cat relative to body size. Strong enough to pierce turtle shells, crocodilian armor, even the skulls of cattle. But jaguars aren't numerous. Large predators never are. The energy pyramid constrains them. It takes roughly 10 kilograms of prey to produce 1 kilogram of predator. A single jaguar might require a territory of 50 to 100 square kilometers, depending on prey density. This means the Amazon, vast as it is, supports perhaps 50,000 jaguars. Maybe fewer. Exact numbers are unknown. Jaguars are secretive, wide-ranging, difficult to count. They're also culturally significant. Indigenous peoples have revered jaguars for millennia. Shamans speak of transforming into jaguars. Warriors took the jaguar's strength as their own. Even the name, jaguar, comes from the indigenous Tupian word, yaguara, meaning he who kills with one leap. The jaguar is power, stealth, the forest made flesh. Our jaguar rests in afternoon heat. His belly is full. The capybara carcass is cached, covered with debris. He's found a shaded spot near the river, a fallen log draped with moss, comfortable, defensible. From here, he can watch the water, monitor his territory, rest. The forest around him hums with life. Howler monkeys roar from across the river, territorial announcements loud enough to carry 3 kilometers. Spider monkeys crash through the canopy above, leaping gaps that would kill most creatures. A toucan lands nearby, its ridiculous bill somehow perfectly balanced, and begins feeding on fruits. He watches with half-closed eyes. None of these animals are threats. None are prey. They exist in parallel, each occupying their niche, each following their own rhythms. A troop of white-lipped peccaries approaches, maybe 40 individuals grunting, snuffling through leaf litter, dangerous in a group. Their tusks can inflict serious damage, and they're fearless when defending their young. He remains still. They pass within 20 meters, unaware of him or simply unconcerned. This is his kingdom, but he doesn't rule through constant enforcement. He rules through presence, through the knowledge that he's here, that he's capable, that crossing him carries consequences. Most of the time, that's enough. The peccaries disappear into the forest. The howlers fall silent. He closes his eyes fully. Sleep will come soon, but not yet. For now, he simply exists, fed, safe, part of the forest's endless cycle. The primate diversity here is staggering. The Amazon hosts over 100 primate species. Some live their entire lives in the canopy, never touching the ground. Others move between levels. A few, like the uakaris, specialize in flooded forests, swimming between trees during high water. The smallest pygmy marmosets weigh barely 100 grams. They live on tree sap, gouging holes in bark and returning to feed on the exudate. The largest, murikis, can reach 15 kilograms, moving through the canopy with grace despite their size. Social structures vary wildly. Howler monkeys live in small troops with one dominant male. Spider monkeys form large fluid communities where individuals come and go. Titi monkeys mate for life, pairs staying together for decades. Tamarins practice cooperative breeding. The whole group helps raise infants, even males carrying babies on their backs. And then there's communication. Howler monkeys, as mentioned, roar. Their enlarged hyoid bone, a horseshoe-shaped bone in the throat, acts as a resonating chamber, amplifying their calls to incredible volumes. Capuchin monkeys use tools, cracking nuts with stones, fishing for insects with sticks. Sakis have specialized teeth for opening hard seed pods that other species can't access. Each species represents a different solution to the same problem: how to survive in a complex, competitive, three-dimensional forest environment. Bird diversity follows similar patterns: specialization upon specialization. Toucans have those massive bills not for display, though they serve that purpose too. The bill is a thermal regulator, full of blood vessels that can dump excess heat when the bird is overheated, or conserve it when cool. It's also surprisingly lightweight, made of hollow bone struts covered in keratin. The structure is so efficient that engineers study it for insights into building lightweight, strong materials. Parrots, over 100 species in the Amazon, occupy every forest level. Large macaws in the canopy, smaller parakeets in the understory, ground-dwelling species in the leaf litter. Some eat fruits, others specialize on flowers, using their tongues to extract nectar. A few focus on seeds, using their powerful beaks as nutcrackers. Then there are the specialists. Oilbirds, nocturnal, cave-dwelling, navigate by echolocation, like bats. They feed exclusively on oil palm fruits, dispersing seeds across vast distances. Hotzins, bizarre, prehistoric-looking birds, have claws on their wings as chicks, allowing them to climb trees before they can fly. They ferment leaves in their crop, like cows, producing a distinctive manure-like smell. And the antbirds, over 200 species, which follow army ant swarms, feeding on the insects the ants flush out. They don't eat the ants. They eat what the ants scare up. Some species specialize on certain ant species. Others follow multiple ant types. A few even follow mammalian predators, catching insects disturbed by larger animals. Our macaws are settling into their afternoon routine. After the morning feeding at the fruiting palm, they've returned to their territory. They perch in their favorite tree, a tall, dead giant that offers clear sight lines in every direction. From here, they can see approaching predators, monitor neighboring pairs, and rest. She preens again. Feather maintenance is constant for macaws. Damaged feathers mean inefficient flight, which means difficulty escaping predators, which means death. So she works methodically, aligning each feather, removing parasites, spreading preen oil from the gland near her tail. Her mate calls, a sharp, loud contact call. She responds. They do this throughout the day, especially when visual contact is broken. It's reassurance. I'm here. I'm safe. We're still together. A harpy eagle passes overhead. Massive, powerful, the Amazon's most formidable avian predator. Both macaws freeze. Silence. Absolute stillness. The eagle continues. It's hunting monkeys today, not birds. But the macaws don't move for 5 full minutes after it disappears. Better to be overcautious than dead. When they finally relax, she moves closer to her mate. Physical contact. Comfort. They've survived another encounter. Their bond, reinforced through thousands of these small moments, remains strong. The afternoon stretches ahead. They'll rest now. Feed again toward evening. Return to the roosting cliff at dusk. The rhythm continues, day after day, season after season. This is what 12 years together looks like. So, amphibians represent perhaps the Amazon's most impressive radiation. Over 1,000 frog species. Every imaginable size, color, lifestyle, reproductive strategy. Some lay eggs in water, others in foam nests hanging from trees. Some carry eggs on their backs, others transport tadpoles in their mouths. The glass frogs, translucent with visible organs, lay eggs on leaves overhanging streams. When the tadpoles hatch, they drop into the water below. Poison dart frogs, as we've seen, use bromeliads. Some species guard their eggs, others abandon them. And then there's the Suriname toad. The female's back develops pockets during breeding season. The male presses eggs into these pockets. The skin grows over them. The eggs develop inside the mother's back. Weeks later, fully formed toadlets erupt from her skin. No tadpole stage, no water needed. Just tiny toads emerging from their mother's body. Each strategy represents a different answer to predation pressure. Eggs in water attract fish, insects, other predators, moving them out of water, into trees, onto backs, into skin. These strategies reduce mortality. The diversity of solutions reflects the diversity of selective pressures. Our poison dart frog has returned to her bromeliad. The tadpoles have grown. She can see the difference from just a few days ago. Slightly longer, more developed hind legs beginning to bud. They're still weeks from metamorphosis, but the transformation has begun. She deposits another unfertilized egg. The tadpoles swarm it immediately, feeding. This maternal investment is costly, but it's also effective. Her tadpoles have no competition, no predators in this tiny pool. Survival rates here are far higher than in ground-level water. Below her, on the forest floor, she hears movement, something large. She freezes, pressing herself flat against the bromeliad's leaves. A tapir. 400 kilograms of browsing mammal, moving through the understory like a living bulldozer. It's heading for water. She can hear it snuffling, following a trail only it can detect. The tapir passes directly beneath her tree. It doesn't look up. Wouldn't see her even if it did. Her red and blue coloration, so vivid to our eyes, blends into the dappled light of the bromeliad. When the sounds fade, she relaxes. The tadpoles continue feeding, oblivious to the danger that passed beneath them. She'll stay a few more minutes, ensuring they've eaten enough, then descend to hunt. Her day is far from over, but her offspring are safe, growing, developing in their perfect little pool suspended in the air. Fish diversity in the Amazon exceeds that of the Atlantic Ocean, 3,000 species, maybe more. The river and its tributaries contain piranhas, yes, but also peaceful fruit eaters, bottom-feeding catfish the size of humans, tiny tetras kept in aquariums worldwide, electric eels that aren't eels at all but specialized knife fish. The arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish on Earth, can reach 3 meters and 200 kilograms. It breathes air, gulping at the surface every 10 to 20 minutes. This adaptation allows it to survive in oxygen-poor floodwaters where other fish suffocate. The candiru, tiny parasitic catfish, has a fearsome reputation. Though most stories are exaggerated, it does enter the gills of larger fish, feeding on blood. Whether it enters human urethras, as legend claims, is doubtful, but the fear persists. And the electric eel, which can generate 850-volt shocks, enough to stun a horse, kill a person, certainly enough to stun prey. It uses electricity not just for hunting, but for navigation, communication, even courtship. A living battery, swimming through the murky waters. The diversity reflects the Amazon's aquatic complexity, fast water and slow, deep channels and shallow streams, black water, white water, clear water, permanent rivers and seasonal pools. Each habitat type supports its own community. Each community contains species found nowhere else. Insects, though. Insects are where the real diversity lies. Ants alone, over 1,000 species in the Amazon. Leafcutters, army ants, fire ants, bullet ants, carpenter ants. Some build nests in trees, others underground. Some are solitary hunters. Others live in colonies numbering millions. The bullet ant, named for its incredibly painful sting compared to being shot, is used in initiation ceremonies by some indigenous groups. Young men must wear gloves filled with bullet ants, enduring the pain to prove their courage. The venom contains ponerotoxin, a paralyzing neurotoxin that causes waves of burning, throbbing pain for up to 24 hours. Butterflies, perhaps 4,000 species. The blue morpho, wings spanning 15 centimeters, iridescent blue visible from aircraft, is among the most recognizable. The color isn't pigment, it's structural, microscopic scales that refract light, creating that impossible blue. Beetles, of course, 300,000 species estimated. Though most remain undescribed, they fill every conceivable niche. Herbivores, predators, parasites, decomposers. Some as small as a grain of sand. Others, like the Titan beetle, reaching 17 centimeters in length. And then the strangest specialists, wasps that parasitize other parasitic wasps. Flies that live only in the nostrils of specific frog species. Caterpillars that mimic bird droppings so perfectly that birds ignore them. The evolutionary creativity seems limitless. Plants, though less mobile than animals, show equal diversity. 40,000 plant species, from tiny mosses to emergent giants, from parasites that possess no chlorophyll to carnivorous plants that trap and digest insects. The strangler figs begin life as epiphytes, seeds deposited in tree canopies by birds. They germinate there, sending roots down toward the ground. As the roots thicken, they surround the host tree, eventually strangling it. The host dies and rots away, leaving a hollow fig tree standing in its place. Bromeliads, over 1,000 species, exist entirely in the air, anchored to trees, collecting water and nutrients from rain and debris. Each bromeliad is a miniature ecosystem. Aquatic larvae live in the water. Frogs breed there. Insects crawl through the leaves. Some bromeliads contain food webs with 10 or more species, all living in a plant no larger than a basketball. The Victoria amazonica, giant water lily, produces leaves 3 meters across, strong enough to support a small child. The flowers open white on the first night, attracting scarab beetles. The beetles become trapped, covered in pollen. The next night, the flowers turn pink and release the beetles, now serving as pollinators as they move to other white flowers. These relationships, plant and pollinator, predator and prey, host and parasite, are the real story of Amazonian biodiversity. It's not just that many species live here. It's that they're connected in ways so complex, so specific, that removing one species can cascade through the entire system. The Brazil nut tree depends on a single bee species for pollination. That bee species depends on a specific orchid for part of its life cycle. The orchid depends on a specific fungus. The fungus depends on the tree's roots. Remove any link, and the whole chain collapses. This is why conservation is so difficult. You can't protect just the charismatic species, the jaguars, the macaws, the giant otters. You have to protect the entire web, the insects, the fungi, the obscure plants. Everything. And we don't even know what all the links are. We're still discovering the relationships, still mapping the connections. The Amazon is a puzzle, with most pieces still missing. The strangest partnerships often involve the smallest participants. Fungus-growing ants, distant relatives of leafcutters, cultivate fungi in underground gardens. But the fungi they grow are susceptible to a parasitic mold. The ants can't remove this mold themselves. Instead, they harbor bacteria on their bodies. The bacteria produce antibiotics that kill the mold but leave the cultivated fungus unharmed. Four-way symbiosis: ant, fungus, mold, bacteria. All co-evolved, all dependent on each other. And we only discovered this in the last 20 years. Acacia trees house ants in their thorns. The ants defend the tree. But the tree also produces protein-rich structures called Beltian bodies specifically to feed the ants. The tree invests energy creating ant food. Why? Because the protection the ants provide is worth more than the energy cost. Three-toed sloths harbor moths that lay eggs in sloth dung. The moths die on the sloth's fur, decomposing and fertilizing the algae growing there. The sloth eats some of this algae, gaining nutrients. The algae benefits from the fertilizer. The moths gain a breeding site. Everyone profits. These aren't simple relationships. They're multi-layered, codependent, evolved over millions of years, and they're everywhere in the Amazon. We just have to look closely enough to see them. As evening approaches, the forest shifts. Diurnal species retreat. Nocturnal species emerge. The understory, already dim, becomes truly dark. But darkness doesn't mean silence or inactivity. It means a change of actors. Bats emerge. Over 150 species in the Amazon. Fruit bats, nectar bats, insect-eating bats, fish-eating bats, even vampire bats. They navigate by echolocation, their calls too high-pitched for human hearing. They fill the night sky, invisible masters of the air. Night monkeys, the only truly nocturnal primate, begin their activities. Large eyes gather every photon, silent movement through the canopy. They feed on fruits, insects, tree gum, filling the same niches that day-active monkeys occupy 12 hours earlier. Ocelots, smaller cousins of the jaguar, begin hunting. They're built for the understory, smaller, more agile, capable of climbing. They hunt rodents, birds, reptiles, even small monkeys. Their spotted coat disappears in the broken shadows of moonlight through leaves. The forest never sleeps. It simply changes. The stage remains the same, but the performers rotate. Day shift, night shift, eternal rhythms. This is the Amazon's secret. Not just diversity, but efficiency. Every niche is filled. Every resource is used. Every moment of every day. Someone is eating, being eaten, reproducing, dying, decomposing. Energy flows through the system with minimal waste. A tree falls. Within hours, termites begin breaking down the wood. Fungi colonize. Beetle larvae tunnel. Woodpeckers excavate holes. Orchids take root in the decaying bark. Within months, the log is infrastructure, housing dozens of species. Within years, its nutrients reabsorbed into the soil, feeding new growth. Nothing is wasted. Death feeds life, always. This is why the Amazon is so productive despite poor soils. Nutrients cycle rapidly, passing from organism to organism, rarely touching the ground. It's an elevated economy, most wealth held in living things, not in banks. And it's fragile. Remove too many trees, break too many links, and the cycle stutters. The efficiency drops, the system degrades, but we're getting ahead of ourselves again. Before we discuss threats, we need to understand what the Amazon does for the rest of the planet. Because this forest isn't just important for the creatures living here, it's essential for the entire Earth. The Amazon breathes, and in breathing, it regulates global climate, produces rain, stores carbon, and makes the distant possible. Let's explore what happens when a forest becomes a climate. The Amazon is often called the lungs of the Earth. This metaphor is imperfect. Lungs take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. The Amazon does the opposite. It consumes carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. But the name captures something true. This forest breathes, and in breathing, it makes distant life possible. Trees absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. They use the carbon to build wood, leaves, roots. They release the oxygen as waste. A single large tree can produce enough oxygen for 2 people per year. The Amazon contains approximately 400 billion trees. Do the math. The Amazon produces roughly 20% of the world's oxygen. Not all of it. The ocean's phytoplankton produces more, but a significant portion, enough that the forest's respiration affects atmospheric composition globally. But oxygen production, impressive as it is, isn't the Amazon's most critical function. Carbon storage is. The Amazon holds between 150 and 200 billion metric tons of carbon. This carbon is locked up in living tissue, wood, leaves, roots, soil organisms. It's been accumulating for thousands of years, removed from the atmosphere, sequestered in biomass. As long as the forest stands, that carbon stays put. When trees burn or decompose, the carbon returns to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. This is natural, the carbon cycle. But the Amazon is so vast, holds so much carbon, that its destruction would fundamentally alter global climate. If the entire Amazon were lost, atmospheric carbon dioxide would increase by roughly 10%. Global temperatures would rise. Weather patterns would shift. The impacts would be felt everywhere. Melting ice caps, rising seas, changing rainfall, agricultural disruption. The Amazon isn't just a regional ecosystem. It's a global climate regulator. Its health affects everyone, everywhere. But the forest does more than store carbon. It creates rain. Trees pull water from the soil through their roots. This water travels up the trunk, through the branches to the leaves. There, most of it evaporates through tiny pores called stomata. This process, transpiration, releases water vapor into the atmosphere. The Amazon transpires an extraordinary amount, 20 billion tons of water per day. That's more than the Amazon River discharges into the Atlantic. This water vapor rises, cools, condenses into clouds. Rain falls. Some falls on the forest itself, watering the trees that created it. But much of it travels, carried by wind patterns, moving westward across the continent. The Andes Mountains block this moisture. It rises, cools further, and falls as rain on the western slopes. This rain feeds rivers that flow back down into the Amazon. It's a cycle. The forest creates the rain that sustains the forest, but the effects extend far beyond the Amazon basin. Moisture from the Amazon reaches southern Brazil, Paraguay, northern Argentina. Regions hundreds of kilometers from the forest depend on rain it produces. Agricultural areas, soy fields, cattle ranches, orange groves, exist because Amazonian trees transpire water that eventually falls as rain on distant farms. Destroy the forest, and you destroy the rain. The irony is bitter. Farmers clear forest for pasture, but clearing the forest reduces rainfall, making agriculture more difficult. They're destroying the very system that makes their farms productive. This is already happening. Rainfall in southeastern Brazil has declined. Droughts are more frequent, more severe. The dry seasons last longer. Scientists debate the exact causes, but deforestation in the Amazon is certainly a factor. The forest is tipping toward a critical threshold. Models suggest that if 20 to 25% of the Amazon is lost, the entire system could collapse. The forest would begin drying out, unable to generate enough rain to sustain itself. Trees would die. Fire would increase. The remaining forest would transition to savanna. We're at roughly 17% deforestation now. The margin is thin. Our jaguar has noticed the change in light. The sun is setting. Not that he can see it directly through the canopy, but the quality of light shifts. The greens become deeper, richer. Shadows lengthen. The forest's rhythm changes. He rises from his resting place, stretches. Evening is hunting time for many creatures. Not for him, not tonight. His belly is still full from the morning's kill, but he'll patrol his territory, mark boundaries, check the carcass. He moves through the flooded forest with purpose now. The water has dropped another few centimeters. It's subtle, but he tracks these things. The dry season approaches. Soon, the forest floor will be walkable again. His hunting strategies will shift. A troop of spider monkeys settles into their sleeping trees overhead. They call to each other, soft hoots, contact calls, reassurance. He ignores them. They ignore him. Mutual understanding. He reaches the cached capybara. It's undisturbed. He feeds again, not from hunger, but from efficiency. Meat spoils quickly in this heat. Better to eat now than let it waste. As he feeds, the forest grows quieter. The shift from day to night brings a brief pause. Diurnal animals settling, nocturnal animals not yet active. A moment of transition, of breath. He knows this rhythm, has known it his entire life. His mother taught him, and her mother taught her, back through generations uncounted. This is what it means to be jaguar, to know the forest's pulse, to be part of its breathing. The threats to the Amazon are well documented. Deforestation, mining, agriculture, infrastructure development. Each removes forest, releases carbon, disrupts the system. Cattle ranching is the largest driver. 70 to 80% of deforested land becomes pasture. The economics are simple. Land is cheap. Demand for beef is high. Regulations are weak. Cut the forest, burn it, plant grass, raise cattle. Profit. But the land degrades quickly. The thin topsoil erodes within a few years. Productivity drops. So ranchers move on, clearing more forest, repeating the cycle. It's extractive, unsustainable, profitable only in the short term. Soy agriculture follows a similar pattern. International demand, mostly for animal feed, drives expansion. Forest becomes field. The first few harvests are productive. Then the soil depletes. Farmers apply more fertilizer, which runs into rivers, polluting water, killing fish. Eventually, productivity declines to the point where the land is abandoned. And the forest doesn't return. Not easily, not quickly, possibly not at all. Mining brings different problems. Gold mining, particularly illegal operations, uses mercury to extract gold from sediment. The mercury enters rivers. Fish absorb it. People eat the fish. Mercury poisoning follows. Neurological damage, birth defects, death. Indigenous communities downstream from mining operations suffer the worst effects. They didn't invite the miners. They don't profit from the gold. But they drink the poison water, eat the contaminated fish. Watch their children develop tremors and cognitive impairments. The miners move on. The mercury remains. It persists in the environment for decades, continuing to poison long after the gold is gone. Iron ore, copper, and other mineral extraction involves massive operations. Open-pit mines the size of small cities. Entire hills are removed. Rivers are diverted. The landscape is fundamentally altered. What remains when the mine closes? A scar. A toxic wasteland. Nothing grows there anymore. Infrastructure development fragments the forest. Roads seem innocuous. They're just pathways, connections. But in the Amazon, roads bring destruction. They provide access to previously unreachable areas. Loggers follow the roads, then ranchers, then settlers. Each wave removes more forest. The pattern is consistent. Build a road, lose the forest, 10 kilometers on either side within a decade. Roads that were supposed to bring development instead bring degradation. Dams disrupt river systems. The Amazon's fish depend on seasonal floods, on migration routes, on specific flow patterns. Dams change all of that. Fish populations collapse. The communities that depend on them, both human and animal, suffer. And the dams don't even produce that much power relative to their environmental cost. The reservoirs flood forest, releasing carbon as the vegetation decomposes underwater. The methane produced from this decay is a potent greenhouse gas. In some cases, tropical dams produce more greenhouse gases than fossil fuel plants generating equivalent power. Our scarlet macaws are heading home. The day has been successful. They fed well, avoided predators, maintained their bond. Now, as dusk approaches, they return to the roosting cliff where they've slept for years. The flight takes them across a section of forest that's changed recently. She notices it, a gap in the canopy that wasn't there last season. Several large trees are gone, not fallen naturally, cut. The stumps are visible from the air. Illegal logging. It happens here sporadically. The loggers come, take a few valuable trees, mahogany probably, and disappear before rangers arrive. The forest doesn't recover quickly. Those trees were 100, maybe 200 years old. They won't be replaced in her lifetime. She and her mate avoid the area now. It feels exposed, dangerous. The canopy's integrity is broken. Predators could hide there. The usual flight paths no longer work. They reach the cliff. Dozens of macaws are already settling in, the evening congregation. They join their usual spot, a small ledge 40 meters up. They'll sleep here, pressed together, safe on the vertical stone where terrestrial predators can't reach. The sun touches the horizon. The sky turns orange, then pink, then purple. The river below reflects the colors. For a moment, everything is painted in warm light. She tucks her head beneath her wing. Her mate does the same. Around them, the other macaws settle. The day ends. Tomorrow will bring the same routines, the same risks, the same small pleasures. As it always has, as it might not always, the forest holds them all, for now. But there is hope. There are reasons for optimism. Protected areas are expanding. Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, all have increased their conservation efforts. National parks, indigenous reserves, biological stations, land where exploitation is prohibited, where the forest is allowed to persist. These protected areas work. Deforestation rates inside them are far lower than outside. The presence of rangers, regulations, and enforcement makes a difference. Not perfect, illegal activity still occurs, but significantly reduced. And indigenous territories, as mentioned, are the most effective protection. Where indigenous peoples retain land rights and management authority, forests remain. Their traditional practices, selective harvesting, controlled burning, sustainable hunting, maintain the forest's health while providing for human needs. Supporting indigenous land rights isn't just ethical, it's practical. It's the most cost-effective conservation strategy available. Reforestation efforts are underway. Not everywhere, not at the scale needed, but they're happening. Degraded pasture is being converted back to forest. Native species are being planted. Corridors are being established to connect isolated forest patches, allowing animals to move between them. These efforts face challenges. Reforestation is expensive. It takes decades before planted trees provide the same ecological functions as old growth. And climate change adds uncertainty. Will the reforested areas receive enough rain? Will temperatures remain suitable? But successes exist. The Atlantic forest, Brazil's other major rainforest, once reduced to 7% of its original extent, has rebounded to 12% through aggressive reforestation. It's still fragmented, still threatened, but the trajectory has reversed. The same could happen in the Amazon. If the political will exists, if funding continues, if people care enough. Perhaps the most encouraging development is awareness. More people understand the Amazon's importance now than ever before. Not just scientists and activists, but the general public. Documentaries, news coverage, social media, all have spread the message. The Amazon matters to everyone. This awareness translates to pressure. Consumers demand sustainably sourced products. Investors divest from companies involved in deforestation. Governments face international criticism for weak environmental policies. It's not enough yet. Awareness doesn't automatically create change, but it's a necessary first step. You can't solve a problem you don't acknowledge. And the solutions exist. We know how to stop deforestation. We know how to restore forests. We know how to support indigenous communities. It's not a knowledge problem. It's a will problem, a priority problem, a political problem. Our poison dart frog makes her final check. The tadpoles are active, even as darkness settles. They've grown noticeably today. Another week, maybe two, and they'll develop front legs. 2 weeks after that, they'll metamorphose, tiny froglets, ready to begin their own lives. She deposits one more egg, the last one for today. The tadpoles swarm it. She watches briefly, then begins her descent. The forest floor at night is a different world. Bioluminescent fungi glow on rotting logs. Click beetles flash green lights as they fly. The darkness isn't complete. It's dotted with tiny beacons of life. She returns to her territory, 20 square meters that provide everything she needs. Prey, shelter, moisture, safety. This patch of forest has supported her kind for millions of years. Her ancestors hunted here when the first humans arrived, when the first cities rose, when everything changed and nothing changed. She finds a spot beneath a broad leaf, protected from above, hidden from sides. She settles in. Her skin, toxic and bright, fades into the shadows. The forest continues around her. Insects call. A distant jaguar vocalizes, a deep, coughing roar. Somewhere, monkeys alarm at a passing predator. The night is full, complex, alive. She closes her eyes. Tomorrow will bring the same challenges, the same hunt, the same climb to check the tadpoles, the cycle continuing, as it always has. The forest breathes. She breathes with it. The Amazon's future is uncertain. Current trends are concerning. Deforestation rates, while lower than historic peaks, remain high. Climate change adds stress. Longer dry seasons, more intense droughts, increased fire risk. The tipping point draws closer, but the future isn't predetermined. Choices made now, by governments, corporations, individuals, will determine what happens next. Will the forest survive this century? Will it thrive or collapse? Will your great-grandchildren see an Amazon recognizable to us, or a degraded savanna, a ghost of what existed? The answer depends on actions taken today. Support for indigenous land rights, pressure on companies to end deforestation in their supply chains, investment in sustainable alternatives to forest-destroying industries, reforestation of degraded areas, enforcement of environmental regulations, international cooperation on climate change. None of these actions are easy. All of them are necessary. But here's what's often forgotten in discussions of conservation. The Amazon isn't just important for what it does for us. It has intrinsic value. It exists for its own sake, not merely as a service provider for humanity. The jaguar's worth isn't measured by carbon sequestration. The macaw's value isn't calculated in oxygen production. The frog doesn't exist to provide pharmaceutical compounds. They have worth simply by existing, by being part of this ancient, complex, beautiful system, by having their own lives, their own challenges, their own moments of rest and danger and connection. Protecting the Amazon because it regulates climate is important, but protecting it because it deserves to exist, because every creature in it deserves to continue its story, that's equally valid. Perhaps more so. As our night with the Amazon draws to a close, let's take stock. We've journeyed from deep geological time, from inland seas and rising mountains to the present moment. We've watched an ecosystem assemble itself, species by species, relationship by relationship. We've met the peoples who shaped this forest for thousands of years. We've explored the staggering diversity, the complex partnerships, the delicate balances, and we've followed 3 lives through a single day. A jaguar, hunting and resting, moving through his territory with the confidence of apex predation. A pair of macaws, bonded for life, navigating the dangers and pleasures of the canopy. A tiny frog, caring for offspring in a pool suspended in air, hunting in a world measured in centimeters. 3 lives among billions, 3 stories among countless others. But in following them, perhaps we've glimpsed something essential about this place. The Amazon isn't an abstraction. It's not a statistic or a climate model or a conservation challenge. It's millions of individual lives, each one struggling, surviving, reproducing, dying. Each one connected to all the others. Each one part of something larger than itself. Night has fully fallen now across the forest. Our jaguar has settled in a comfortable spot, a broad branch 30 meters from the ground, away from water, defensible. He'll sleep here, wake periodically, sleep again. Tomorrow might bring a hunt, or rest, or challenges he can't yet anticipate. But he's equipped for all of it. 7 years of experience, millions of years of evolution. He'll adapt. The macaws are silent now, heads tucked, sleeping the deep sleep of birds who survived another day. The cliff protects them. Their bond sustains them. Tomorrow they'll wake, preen, fly to the clay lick, feed at fruiting trees. The routine continues. It's kept them alive this long. It will continue to. The poison dart frog doesn't sleep, exactly. She enters a state of reduced activity, conserving energy, waiting for dawn. Her tadpoles, high above in their bromeliad pool, continue their slow development. In 2 weeks, they'll leave that pool. In 4 weeks, they'll be independent. She'll begin again, finding a mate, laying eggs, starting the cycle over. 3 lives, 3 rhythms, 3 stories unfolding in parallel, touching briefly, diverging again. This is the Amazon. Not one thing, but countless things. Not simple, but complex beyond full comprehension. Not conquered, but enduring. Not guaranteed, but possible. The sounds of the night forest surround us now. Insects, chorus. A sound so constant you stop noticing it until it stops. Frogs call from the forest floor, from the canopy, from water. A potu bird gives its eerie, descending whistle. Somewhere distant, a jaguar vocalizes again. Closer, a kinkajou moves through branches, seeking fruit. The river flows, its sound a constant low frequency beneath everything else. It's been flowing for millions of years. It will flow for millions more, though perhaps through a different landscape, perhaps serving different creatures, perhaps witnessing changes we can't yet imagine. The canopy rustles, wind moving through, or an animal passing, or both. The leaves, billions of them, each one a tiny solar panel, each one drinking carbon dioxide, each one releasing oxygen, each one transpiring water that will become rain, that will fall and nourish and begin the cycle again. The forest breathes. You can almost hear it. A slow rhythm, deeper than daily cycles, deeper than seasonal changes. The breath of an ecosystem, ancient and vital and fragile and resilient all at once. Let these sounds carry you now. The Amazon continues without us. The jaguar dreams of capybara, or perhaps doesn't dream at all. The macaws sleep, safe on their cliff. The frog waits in darkness, patient, perfect in her small world. The forest breathes, and far away, perhaps where you are now, rain falls that began as transpiration here. Oxygen enters your lungs that a tree produced this morning. Carbon dioxide that will never become catastrophic climate change stays locked in wood, in leaves, in soil. You are connected to this place, however distant, however invisible the threads. You breathe because the Amazon breathes. Your climate remains livable because this forest regulates. Your future and its future are not separate. The Amazon asks nothing of you. It simply exists, doing what it has always done, creating rain, storing carbon, housing countless lives, being, in its vast and complex way, itself. But perhaps, knowing what you know now, you'll think of it differently. Not as distant wilderness, but as connected necessity. Not as pristine nature, but as human-shaped garden. Not as guaranteed, but as requiring care, attention, protection. The jaguar sleeps, the macaws rest, the frog waits for dawn, and the forest, the vast, breathing, irreplaceable forest, continues its ancient rhythms. Rain begins to fall, gentle at first. The sound it makes hitting leaves is soft, percussive, almost musical. The drops find their way through the canopy, down through the understory, finally reaching the forest floor where they'll be absorbed, or flow into streams, or evaporate and rise again to become clouds, to become rain, to continue the cycle. The night deepens. The sounds blur together. Rain, insects, frogs, wind, river. They create a tapestry of sound, complex and layered, each element distinct yet part of a unified whole. This is the voice of the Amazon. Not one voice, but a chorus. Not simple, but richly complex. Not static, but ever-changing while remaining fundamentally itself. Let it surround you. Let it fill the space around you. Let your breathing slow to match its rhythm. The forest has been breathing for millions of years. It will continue. And for now, in this moment, you breathe with it. Sleep comes naturally here, as natural as rain, as natural as a jaguar resting in a tree, as natural as macaws dreaming on a cliff, as natural as a frog waiting for dawn. The Amazon holds you now as it holds all things. Rest here, be part of its breathing. Let the stories continue, the cycles turn, the forest persist. The night is long, the forest is patient, and all is, for now, as it should be. The rain continues, steady and soft. Drops strike leaves and roll off. They gather in the cups of bromeliads. They stream down tree trunks, following the grooves in bark. They create tiny temporary streams on the forest floor, carving miniature valleys in the leaf litter before being absorbed by the thirsty soil. This rain fell from clouds that formed from water transpired by trees. It will be absorbed by roots, pulled up through trunks, released again as vapor. The cycle continues, endless, essential. Listen to it now. Only the rain, only the forest breathing. The river flows beneath the rain. The two sounds merge. The percussion of rain on leaves. The low, constant rush of water moving. Both are movement. Both are the forest in motion. Insects continue their chorus, softer now in the rain. Some seek shelter. Others continue their calls, undeterred. Life persists in all conditions. A nightbird calls, once, twice, then silence. The rain fills the space it left. Deep in the forest, water drips from 1,000 points, each drop a tiny sound. Together, they create something larger. Not quite music, not quite silence, something in between. The canopy above is invisible now in the darkness, but you can sense it. A vast roof, breathing, living, protecting. The rain touches it first, before touching anything else. The forest catches the sky's gift and shares it downward. Leaves rustle. Wind or animal, it doesn't matter. Both are part of the same tapestry. Both belong here. The rain eases. The intensity lessens. The sound changes from constant percussion to occasional drips. The forest drips for hours after rain stops. Water held in leaves, in moss, in the crevices of bark, all of it slowly finding its way down. Drip, drip, drip. Each one a small sound in the vast darkness. The river continues its constant voice. Steady, unchanging, it's flowed for millions of years. The same water. Number. The same river. Yes. Always different. Always itself. The sound is constant. But if you listen closely, you hear variation. Deeper currents rumble. Surface water burbles. Eddies swirl. It's not one sound, but many, braided together into something that seems singular. Somewhere, a tree falls. The sound is distant, muffled by forest. A crack. A long descending crash as it meets other trees on the way down. A final impact. Then silence. A space has opened in the canopy. Light will reach the forest floor there tomorrow. Seedlings that have waited years, decades perhaps, for this moment, will race upward. The gap will fill, the forest will continue, but for now, just the absence. Just the space where a tree was. The forest adjusts. It always does. The night insect's chorus rises and falls, sometimes louder, sometimes softer, never completely silent. They've been singing this song for millions of years. The same rhythms, the same frequencies. An ancient sound. Frogs join them occasionally. A call here, an answer there. They don't chorus like insects. They make individual statements into the darkness. I'm here. This is my territory. I'm alive. The darkness absorbs their voices, holds them, lets them fade. Water moves everywhere, in the river, in tiny streams, in the soil, up through trees, down from leaves. The forest is a system of water in motion, always moving, never still. If you could see it all at once, every drop, every flow, every cycle, you'd see circulation. The forest's blood, its lifeblood, moving, always moving. But you can only hear it, the river, the drips, the subtle flow through soil, each one a small note in an infinite composition. The wind rises briefly. The canopy responds, a sound like distant waves. The leaves move together, creating something larger than their individual rustlings. The forest has a voice, and this is one of its expressions. Then the wind settles. The sound fades. The dripping continues. The river flows. The insects sing. Stillness isn't silence in the Amazon. It's simply a different arrangement of sounds. Quieter sounds, subtler sounds, but always sound, always life expressing itself. Dawn is still hours away. The night holds. The darkness remains. But it's not empty darkness. It's full darkness, rich darkness. Darkness teeming with life you can't see, but can sense, can hear, can feel, in the quality of the air. The forest is most alive when you can't see it, when sight withdraws and other senses expand, when you become only ears, only skin feeling humidity, only breath moving in and out. The Amazon continues around you, patient, ancient, breathing. Let yourself breathe with it. Let the sounds become your sounds. Let the rhythm become your rhythm. Let the forest hold you as it holds all things. Rain begins again. Gentle, so gentle you barely notice when it starts. But gradually the sound builds, drops on leaves, more drops, many drops, until the forest is alive with rain once more. This is how it goes. Rain and pause, rain and pause. The wet season's rhythm. The forest drinks, the trees transpire, the clouds form, the rain falls, again, again, endlessly. You are part of this cycle now. Your breath is part of it. Your listening is part of it. You and the forest, breathing together in the darkness. Somewhere, distant, almost beyond hearing, a howler monkey vocalizes. A low call, testing the dawn that hasn't come yet. Then silence. Too early. It will call again in a few hours when light touches the canopy. But for now, darkness, rain, the river's voice, the insect's chorus, the dripping of water from a million leaves. This is the Amazon's lullaby. Not simple, not silent, but complete, perfect in its complexity, holding you, surrounding you, inviting you to rest. Let it carry you through the rest of the night. Let the sounds blur and merge. Let your thoughts drift like rain. Let sleep come naturally, as it comes to all creatures of the forest. The jaguar sleeps, the macaws rest, the frog waits. And you drift on the sound of rain, the voice of the river, the breathing of the forest. Rest now. The Amazon continues. It will be here when you wake. It will be here long after, breathing, always breathing.